In the ancient times, nestled in a serene forest by the banks of the sacred Ganga, there lived a great sage named Rishi Vashisht. He was known for his deep wisdom and spiritual insight, and many disciples from distant lands would come to him seeking guidance on how to conquer the fears of life and death. One day, a young disciple named Rama approached him with a troubled heart, seeking to understand how to overcome the ultimate fear, the fear of death. Rama's question. "O venerable master," Rama said, bowing deeply before the sage, "I have learned much about the nature of the self, the eternal truth, and the impermanence of all things. But still, the fear of death haunts me. How can one be free from the terror that comes with the thought of death? How can we overcome the inevitability of death and attain liberation?" Rishi Vashisht looked at his disciple, whose face bore the weight of existential dread. After a moment of contemplation, he began to speak in his calm, resonant voice. "Rama, death is a part of the cycle of life. All beings are born, grow, live, and eventually depart from the world. But fear of death arises when one fails to recognize the eternal nature of the soul, the Atman, which is never born and never dies. The true self is beyond death. It is immortal." Rama, still troubled by his fear, asked again, "But master, if the soul is immortal, why do we fear death so much?" Vashisht smiled gently and said, "The fear of death arises from ignorance, from the identification with the physical body and mind. When we are attached to our form, to the fleeting nature of our body, death becomes an enemy. But when we realize that the Atman is not the body but the eternal, indestructible self, we can transcend this fear." To help Rama understand this deeper truth, Vashisht began telling him a powerful story, the story of the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, a divine chant that had the power to liberate the soul from the fear of death and bestow immortality through realization. The story of the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. In the ancient times, there was a king named Trishanku, who ruled a prosperous kingdom. Although he had everything a ruler could desire, he was consumed by the fear of death. His mind was restless, always troubled by the thought that one day, his reign would end, and he would succumb to the inevitable grasp of death. Seeking answers, Trishanku went to a renowned sage, Rishi Vasishtha, who was famous for his wisdom. The king bowed before the sage and asked, "O great sage, I fear the inevitable death that will one day take me from this world. I have all the wealth and power in my kingdom, but I cannot escape the fear of death. Is there a way to transcend death and live eternally?" Rishi Vasishtha, understanding the king's suffering, responded, "King Trishanku, death is but a passage, and the fear of it can be conquered by understanding the true nature of the self. There is a powerful chant, a mantra, that can bring liberation from this fear. This mantra is known as the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. It has the power to invoke the blessings of Lord Shiva and protect the practitioner from the fear of death." The king eagerly asked, "What is this chant, O sage? Please teach it to me so that I may be freed from this fear." The Mahamrityunjaya mantra. Rishi Vasishtha, with a divine smile, spoke the sacred words of the mantra. Om Triambakam Yajamhe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshya Ma Amritat. Translation. We meditate upon the three-eyed one, Lord Shiva, who is fragrant and nourishes all beings. May he liberate us from the bondage of death, just as the cucumber is easily separated from the wine. Grant us immortality, free us from the fear of death. Rama listened intently as the sage explained the meaning of the mantra. The Mahamrityunjaya mantra is a prayer to Lord Shiva, the destroyer of illusions and the conqueror of death. By chanting this mantra with devotion and understanding, one is not only freed from the fear of death, but also attains liberation from the cycle of birth and death, samsara. The power of the chant. King Trishanku, full of faith, began chanting the Mahamrityunjaya mantra with great devotion. With each repetition, he felt his fear of death dissolve. His heart became calm, and his soul began to expand in awareness. The more he chanted, the more he realized that the Atman, his true self, was beyond the limitations of the body and mind. Through the power of the mantra, Trishanku gained wisdom and liberation. He realized that death was not to be feared, for the soul is eternal, untouched by time and change. Death was merely a transition, not an end. With this understanding, the king lived the rest of his life in peace, knowing that the fear of death had no hold over him. Rama's realization. As Rishi Vashisht finished narrating the story of King Trishanku, he turned to his disciple, Rama, and said, Rama, just as King Trishanku overcame his fear of death by meditating on the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, you, too, can free yourself from the terror of mortality. Chant this mantra with a pure heart, with full devotion, and you will realize the eternal truth, that the soul is beyond birth and death. Fear arises from ignorance, but the truth is that you are the eternal, indestructible self, and death has no power over you. Rama bowed deeply, and with newfound understanding, he began to chant the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. As he repeated the sacred words, a sense of peace and fearlessness washed over him. He realized that death, far from being a threat, was merely a change, a passing moment in the eternal existence of the soul. The moral of the story. Fear of death is born from ignorance. The fear of death arises from the identification with the physical body. When one realizes that the soul, Atman, is eternal and indestructible, death loses its power to instill fear. The power of the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, the chant invokes the blessings of Lord Shiva, helping the practitioner to transcend the fear of death and attain liberation. It is a reminder that death is a natural part of life, and through spiritual practices, one can conquer the fear that surrounds it. Realization of the immortality of the soul. The core message is that the true self, or Atman, is never born and never dies. The body is temporary, but the soul is eternal. By realizing this truth, one becomes free from the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Through the powerful story of King Trishanku and the wisdom of Rishi Vashisht, Rama, and all seekers were reminded that the fear of death is an illusion. The soul is immortal, and by chanting the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, one can attain freedom from the fear of mortality and realize the divine truth that transcends all forms and illusions.